Welcome to Chat with the Chaplain. My name is Paul Arnold, and I'm here at Glacier Hill Senior Living, serving as the chaplain and director of mission and spiritual services. And someone who I've gotten to know over the last 7 years in the chaplain circles, if you can say it that way, in the area, is Kathy Schell. She's out in Chelsea at Chelsea Hospital and part of the Trinity Health team. And glad that you're able to join me today, Kathy, for this chat over the internet.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Yep, we can always talk. But chaplains listen a lot as well as talk, and that's the most important thing.
It sure is. I know once in a while when all the chaplains get together, I've been in rooms where every chaplain wants to ask questions and not talk. And it becomes sort of this game of questioning, and it's a little funny at times. But we've been spending time during this COVID season trying to help figure out how to best care for people in our area. We call it a local area of service, and between Ann Arbor and Chelsea and Livingston and Ann Arbor, we are working together to combine some of our resources and knowledge and contacts so that we can better care for the people. And Kathy, you've been out there at Chelsea since 1983, and that is wonderful.
Yes.
That means the people that love you. But I'm curious, in 1983, do you know what the #1 movie was in December 1983?
I do not know, Paul.
I'll let you off the hook easy here. It was Terms of Endearment, which won a bunch of Academy Awards for Shirley MacLaine and other people like Jack Nicholson. And the #1 song back in December 1983 was Say, Say, Say by Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. And followed the #1 album was Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie, which I actually had that album and still like some of those songs. So do you have a favorite type of music you like to listen to when you're not busy at work?
Oh, my tastes in music are pretty eclectic. I listen to classical. I listen to jazz. I occasionally listen to rock.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, but little bit of everything.
You're like Donnie Marie, a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll?
Well, not exactly.
No. My wife used to love that TV show when she was growing up on TV. So. But we're here because we enjoy talking and comparing notes, and what we share in common is that we're both board certified chaplains, which mean we have gone through a process where the other chaplains have looked over our writings and our experience and how we approach spiritual care. I received my clinical pastoral education at St. Joe's Hospital. Where did you receive your training at?
Let's see. Well, there were several places. My first clinical training was actually down at a hospital in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh.
And then I was still in divinity school at that point. And then the next summer after that, I did a unit of clinical training at Ypsilanti Regional Psychiatric Hospital, which is no longer in existence.
Right.
And then I did a residency year at U of M Hospital in Ann Arbor. So.
And that hospital's changed a lot since then too.
And that hospital has completely changed since the time I did clinical training there. Yeah.
Right. What led you way back in 1983 to Chelsea? Did somebody share with you they had an opening, or how did that happen?
I think somebody shared that there was an opening for a chaplain there. Can't remember, but it was a part-time position, and actually my oldest son was born earlier in 1983, so I was caring for him, and I didn't want anything full-time, so this looked like it was a perfect opportunity. And long story short, of course, here I am at Chelsea 36 years later. So it's been a great time. It's a great place to be. We have a lot of people who have been around for a while because it's a great place to live and work. So, and we have a great team. I think that's one of That's one of the secrets of our secret sauce, if there is such a thing.
Well, when I started working as a chaplain for Arbor Hospice, my territory or my region was Chelsea, Dexter, going toward Jackson, all the way down to Adrian. And I would drive lots of miles, and I would go into Silver Maples, where you had worked for a while as well, part time. And they had talked about you and heard some great things. And first I went to Chelsea Hospital. It was all one floor, and it was in these woods. And I thought, this is really nice and not intimidating and charming. And I got lost in a small little hospital, all the twists and turns, trying to get where I needed to go. And since then, U of M and Trinity have come in to make it even bigger hospital. And not too long ago, my family used some of the resources there and was very pleased with the ER and some of the other things. So what's been the biggest change in the last couple of years?
Oh, that's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years. But I think with our, as you said, two years ago, we went into a joint venture with U of M. So U of M owns 49% of St. Joe Chelsea, but St. Joe still owns 51%, and so they are the managing partner. But what we've seen are the changes that we have. Our inpatient rehab unit is expanding, hugely expanding, which is great. So we are getting a lot more rehab patients from U of M. Also, we have more Michigan medicine physicians here. We have a U of M hospitalist team now. We also have more U of M surgeons doing surgery here. So the effect that we're feeling is that our volumes are increasing, which is good, and we can give people a really great experience. I mean, nobody really wants to come to a hospital, but if you have to, we want it to be a good experience. We want to give the most compassionate, excellent care that we can give. So we're getting, and so our, the beds are really filling up. So I will never get bored as long as I'm here at Chelsea.
No, you wear many different hats, not only the spiritual care as we would see as a traditional chaplain, but you work with missions, and so do I, and we're on quite a few Zoom or online phone calls trying to help that. And as I would try to explain to our residents here, mission goes back to the core values that Trinity Health has as a Christian Catholic organization. And the latest one is safety. And so part of both of our jobs is to tell new employees and tell the community and remind the community of those core values and how do we live them out, stewardship, integrity, and then also let the leaders know that that's how informs our decisions as well, and education, information, things like that. So that's a role you play as well, but it is a little harder when you have U of M there as well. But I've noticed some of my friends are going to Chelsea for shoulder surgery, hip surgeries. It becomes a place where it's easier to get in and out than some of the bigger hospitals.
This is true. And also that's kind of been a mission for our mission. And the U of M docs who are here, I think, can feel that there's a little bit of a difference being at Chelsea. So I've had the privilege of doing some, as you said, some education and formation with some of the U of M physicians, talking with them about our mission and core values. And this is, this is who we are. And that means this is our core values tell us this is how we act toward our colleagues, toward our patients, toward our families. And I think people feel that there's maybe just a little something different in the air. Every place wants to care for people well, but part of that is having that human touch, that extra going over and above, that really makes a difference. People feel that because you can't fake it.
Hmm. Well, I'm very glad to say that we work together, and I can call you if we had someone who had gone to Chelsea, and I can call people over at Tom Maria, over at St. Joe's Hospital, and there's different connections, and the chaplains want to work together to give the best care we can to people in crisis. And our whole country's been in crisis this whole year, and COVID has definitely affected Glacier Hill Senior Living because we shut down and we put all these um, restrictions and precautions in back in March, and we've been living that way. And just a little bit, we're starting to see a little bit of more socialization. So I know how it is on this side. How has it been on the hospital side, all the precautions with COVID?
Oh my goodness! Back in March, well, as you know, everything changed. We had people staying at home to stay safe. Um, a lot of people who could work at home at the hospital, all of a sudden they were working at home.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't doing. We stopped doing elective surgeries. All of a sudden, actually, we had fewer patients than usual, and we had fewer staff than usual. I would walk around thinking, gee, it feels a little bit like a ghost town, but we did care for quite a number of COVID patients, COVID-19. We could take patients from U of M Hospital. We took patients from our sister hospitals, St. Joe's in Ann Arbor and St. Mary Mercy in Livonia, because sometimes they were overwhelmed. And of course, we took care of regular medical patients who needed to be here. But definitely last spring, excuse me, we went through a time when there just weren't as many people in the hospital, and everybody it was so proud of our staff. Everybody was being so careful in, washing our hands and wearing the appropriate PPE. All of our staff stepped up, were willing to take care of the patients who had COVID, and none of the staff got sick from
Yeah.
caring for COVID patients. I would call patients who, in order to conserve PPE, I would actually talk with patients on the phone
Mm-hmm.
uh, instead of going in person to visit them. If they weren't able to talk on the phone, I would call their families. So I was doing a lot of what we sometimes called telechaplaincy. I don't know, maybe you did some of that yourself, Paul, during that time. Now things almost feel like they're back to normal, but not really. We've started allowing visitors to come in, but only one visitor for each person once a day. So we're still being very, very careful, but certainly the hospital looks a lot different than it did, say, back in April.
One of the things that we've seen, and we were worried from the very beginning, is when all of a sudden you take away all the family visits and you take away all the volunteer visits, and all of a sudden you're delivering all the food right to people's rooms. The isolation issue we've been very concerned about. So we've gone around with iPads, tablets. We've tried to do creative things, and then the Glacier Hills TV channel has tried to have a lot of mixture of different church services, yoga, meditation, entertainment, things that people can feel like they're still part of this community. Because that's why the people move to Glacier Hills, to be part of a community, to have socialization and have amenities,
Absolutely.
to make it a high quality of life. And we've had that. And right now we really miss that socialization. So we're doing the best we can, and it's been a big change. And like you said, with the roller coaster of people coming in, we had less people moving in, and now we're starting to see a little glimmer of hope. And trying to do things a little bit at a time, groups of 10, so that people can at least start having conversations, even though they're 6 feet away and with masks. And I remember the first month, I think I washed my hand twice an hour. I used this every time I touched anything. And then I think one of the things we've been talking about how is we were so high on alert, and then we sort of got a little more used to it. And you and I have both been part of what's called Care for Our Colleagues, colleague care program, to help visit our colleagues, our fellow employees, to help them, because at first they were very heroic and rose to the occasion. But sooner or later you wear down and you need somebody just to ask how you're doing. And I know I've been going around talking to my fellow staff members and just listening and seeing how they're doing and what is the new level of care they need to do. How has that gone for you as you've done resilience surrounding and care for your colleagues?
Well, as you say, Paul, I think we, both of us were doing what we now call resilience rounding before we adopted that term for it, because I knew, I was well aware, especially in the spring, that, one of the most important parts of my ministry was caring for our colleagues, caring for the staff who were just putting themselves on the line every day, going above and beyond. So sometimes that just took the shape of informal conversations. Sometimes we'd gather as a group. But even with, okay, we're not caring for so many COVID patients anymore, but did the stress in people's lives go away? I don't think so. And when you look at, people have personal lives apart from the workplace, and just you look at everything that's going on in the larger society, well, there's a lot going on there too that can add stress. So we've been more intentional now about saying we need to care for our colleagues. We need to do what we call resiliency rounding, which is intentional checking in. And I think most Trinity Health Ministries have a team of resiliency rounders. And what we do is just go around and sometimes one-on-one conversations, sometimes at a huddle, talking about stress, allowing people to say what's going on with them, but also saying, here are some things that could help. Mm-hmm. We need to keep talking to each other. We need to keep praying together. We need to keep breathing together. We need to keep supporting one another and making sure that the resources that people need, either in the workplace or maybe even at home, that we help link them up with those resources.
As I've been visiting our residents, the first month in March, I couldn't go from room to room or building to building. They want it very isolated. And then when I was able to start doing that more, I've seen an increasing level of anxiety. And that is the number one psychological issue for seniors as they get older. And so in the last couple of weeks, I found some wonderful resources on YouTube, one from a licensed counselor, one from a psychologist, and one from U of M Dearborn, where they did a study of how aging and anxiety, how that happens among seniors during this pandemic. And I put it up on our YouTube channel, and we've shown it on our in-house TV channel. And I was benefited just preparing that, reminding myself that anxiety is an ongoing thing, and we have a lot to carry these days, like you said, during election year and all the changes we're going through. So we've tried to find any tools we can as chaplains to help, but there's no substitute for just being there in person and being a good listener. And that's really important. So one of the things that I've had to learn, and that's self-care. It's something we learned through our training as a pastoral education, is how do I restore myself as a chaplain, because there's so much giving out and listening, and then you receive a lot of emotion coming your way too. So for me, living in Dexter, I moved out there 5 years ago, has been wonderful because I'm so close to the river. and a picnic recreation area and the great walking areas as well. But how do you restore yourself when you've given a lot to a lot of people?
Oh, well, probably some of the same ways you do, Paul. I mean, I start every day with prayer and meditation. First thing I do, I take my dog out, and then he usually joins me in the living room for
What
that
kind of
for
dog is
that
this?
prayer time. Yes, he's very quiet, so it works out fine. So start just making sure to start every day with some time with God. And like you, I find a lot of restoration in the natural world. So trying to get out as much as possible, walking every day or almost every day anyway. It helps when you have a dog who needs to be walked.
Yeah.
But there's many beautiful areas around Chelsea for walking paths and just being outside. Gardening, of course, this summer is something that's important to me, and just stopping to notice that there is beauty and grace in the world. There people, I think, talking to friends, some talking to colleagues. We support each other, and that's important too. So
I think being very intentional, starting with devotions or ending the day with devotions, having quiet time. But I got two more questions. What kind of dog do you have, and what did you grow in your garden?
oh, we, since we live in a condo, so we just a few herbs and a lot of flowers.
Oh,
Okay. And I have a miniature dachshund named Siggy, which is short for Siegfried. So when I walk with Siggy, I kind of have to slow my pace to him because his legs are very short. But yes, exactly. But he's a trooper. So
well, dachshunds usually think they're bigger than they are. Somebody told me that dogs really have no perception of how big they are. You can have the smallest dog intimidate the biggest dog, and that's okay.
yeah, he's grown into his personality over the years, I think we could say.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the time that you share today over Zoom, and I look forward to some more meetings with you as we collaborate to do more ministry in the area. What words of advice or hope do you give people when they feel really discouraged this time of year? How do you help them reframe maybe some poor thinking? Because we all can get in sort of a funk or feel down. How do you help them?
I think, well, and I know what helps me is reading. We have so many, I don't have to invent the wheel. I mean, we have the scriptures. We have writings from so many wise people over the year, and we can go back to those and draw inspiration from those. But I think just making sure that we have time for, whether it's prayer or just quiet time for restoration, spending time with thoughts. And I think we do have to be intentional about focusing on the positive, because heaven knows there's enough negative in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the staff here have used Brian Sexton's, he's a doctor at Duke University. He has a simple exercise called 3 Good Things. And
yeah.
he's done a lot of research on that. Maybe you've heard of it. Very, very simple. Anyone can do this. You do it in the evening before you go to bed, because things percolate in our brains overnight. So you write down 3 good things that happened during the day. It just takes, just a few minutes to write down 3 good things that happened. It doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering. It could be, well, lunch was good today, or the sun was out, or I noticed this beautiful tree, out in the courtyard. And that act of intentionally noticing the positive can make a difference. If you do it, and I've done this, I do this and then I'll get away from it and then I'll come back to it. But after doing this for a couple of weeks, every evening, you really start noticing, it's like, oh, that's going to be one of my 3 good things tonight. Oh, there's a, had coffee with a friend. That's going to be one of my 3 good things. And you see that, well, yeah, there really is a lot of positive still in the world, but we have to notice it, and it is there.
Mm-hmm.
If we're open with our eyes and our ears and our minds and our spirits, there are still many blessings that God provides for us.
Well, I always think it's a good thing if I get to talk with you. And another thing a lady told me is, no matter how bad a day I have, if I can go outside and look up and then I see the huge, beautiful sky or the dramatic sky, it reminds me that there's so much beauty in the world. So I think we should end on that, be thankful for the good things we have in our life. And Kathy, God bless you in your ministry, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you, Paul. God's blessings to you.